coming up on Theater Talk.
Michael Riedel does a great job with his column. He does, because he pisses everybody off. And I mean, isn't that what he's trying to do after all? He does a great job.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
We've got cheerleaders, contortionists, and so, hey, he'll go with Fred Sports Bar, change the channel to our show. Go, Neil, go!
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
I wish you weren't.
You wish I weren't New York City or Susan Haskins?
Susan Haskins.
Why? Who would you like me to be?
Don Imus, my new son.
Oh, all right. So I'll give Don a call. We can trade. All right.
I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Yes, and as I said before, I'm Susan Haskins. Wow, did we get our Tony predictions wrong, Michael Riedel?
Speak for yourself. I think I batted 101%.
Oh, no, I'm now going to...
I was in the ringer for Kinky Boots from the moment I saw the first preview.
And now I'm ready.
I was promoting Kinky Boots before anybody else was.
And here's an insert.
There's a good deal of support for Matilda, I think, from the Roadbow right now. So I would say Matilda. So it's a 3 for Matilda and 2 for Kinky Boots. Wrong, boys, wrong. Well, that just goes to show you I am 100% right every time I predict the Tony Awards. We're going to do a Tony Award wrap-up tonight with our favorite pundits. We have my old friend Patrick Pacheco from New York One on Stage and the Los Angeles Times, Jesse Green from New York Magazine, Michael Musto from the unemployment line.
Perhaps you didn't read the glowing profile in the New York Times. I had 3 hours of unemployment since being laid off by The Voice, and now I'm on everything, including this. And I have a new column called Musto the
Desperation.
I have a new column called Musto the Musical on Out.com as one of my 17 new jobs, and I'm talking Broadway.
Let me ask you though, Michael. I mean, you were when I was a kid growing up, I always read Michael Musto in the Village.
40 years old as a kid.
I mean, did you see it coming? Were you surprised, or is just
Well, it was no big shock because I saw the way print journalism was going and the way that paper in particular was going. Yeah. I sat there, you know, as marquee name after marquee name was laid off. I had a bit of survivor's guilt. But my horror quickly turned into joy because by the time I was literally laid off, it had already been leaked out in the press, and I was getting new job offers, getting profiled in the New York Times, and the social media was aflame, as it were, with support and love for me, so I feel hotter than ever. I used to be kind of tired old Michael at The Voice.
You're a well-known personality in this town. How come you stayed with The Voice so long? Didn't you have offers over the years to go other places?
I did, but it, you know, I have a bit of Stockholm syndrome. I mean, it was comfortable, and I liked it, and I'm not big on change. Growing up, nothing changed in my house. Everything was covered in plastic, including my father. And, you know, so, you know, sometimes when change is forced on you, it turns out to be not as scary as you think it's going to be.
Okay, Patrick,
new
you
chapter.
and I, let's get fired. Okay.
I really recommend it for everybody.
I know, I gotta say, you look fabulous for somebody who's just been laid off, Michael Musto.
This is his funeral outfit.
All right, speaking about something that never changes, the Tony Awards. It looked to me like every old Tony Award show we've seen for years with Neil Patrick Harris dancing around.
That was a wonderful opening number.
What did you think of the Tonys this year?
Well, I was in the hall, so you get sort of, it's like a long, boring pudding in Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, you were.
And it's like a long, boring pudding with lots of, studded with like kind of raisins of enjoyment every once in a while.
I don't want to know who you're calling a raisin.
In the sun?
You know, I don't think it was worse. I think it was actually a little better than before. The more it played to theater people and forgot about the audience it does not, in fact, have,
You're right.
The better it was. And then when they did those crazy, like, gathering random people from showbiz and putting them together and trying to appeal to middle America, I thought that was ridiculous.
The ratings are up.
Really? They are.
20%. Best since 2009.
Really?
20% over zero.
20
Over zero is still nobody.
What's the math?
What did you think of the show, Mike?
I enjoyed it. It read like a giant commercial for Broadway, and that's
Which
what
is
it
what
should
it's
be.
become.
When I was a kid, when I was 40 and I was a kid, I would watch the Tonys and go, "Oh, I want to see those shows." And this gave you a glimpse. And if something was terrible, the little Matilda girl hit a crazy note, I think. There'd be something else good coming around the bend. And even the commercials were literally commercials for Broadway, things with Berry Gordy and Motown. And
I know, very.
The thing that didn't work for me was having the people from the cast of the shows give away awards. I mean, number one, I thought.
Well, that's because they couldn't get enough big names.
Right, because I thought
celebrities
couldn't the
to do it,
Booker
so they
get
said, let's
Nathan?
do it.
Why didn't Nathan Lane get an award, or Harvey?
he has an agent.
All right, so let me ask you guys. The biggest surprise for me was Tom Hanks losing the Tony to Tracy Letts for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. That was a real surprise, wasn't it, Patrick?
I think that was the biggest upset of the evening. But again, I didn't think Tom Hanks was going to win. I thought that the spoiler
No,
for
you said
him
Nathan, yeah.
was going to be Nathan Lane.
But I was pretty shocked. I was like, wait, they're voting for the best one?
Well,
Tracy-
Jesse, let me ask you, though. Matilda. I mean, Matilda, to me, Kinky Boots is fun. I enjoy Kinky Boots. But Matilda is a superior show. Matilda is a terrific Broadway musical. Why do you think it lost to Kinky Boots?
Well, you said two different things. You said it's a superior show, and you said it's a terrific Broadway musical. I'll give you the latter, but I'm not sure that it is the former. Both it and Kinky Boots have things that are not great about them and have things that are wonderful about them. I think Matilda made some mistakes in how it marketed itself. Certainly the way it showed on the television broadcast was not exceptionally good.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone who doesn't follow Broadway watching that and having any idea what was going on in that horrible school in England. It was completely confusing. And, you know, if you're going to put to a test the voters' preference for heart or head, you're probably going to end up with heart. And that's what they think Kinky Boots delivers.
But the Matilda party was so much fun. We just won lighting. We got lighting.
Well, they did all right. They got 4 awards. They can run on that.
I think it was a huge backlash against Matilda. The eyelashes of Kinky beat the backlashes because,
Yeah, but what's
first of all,
why
Ben
do the
Brantley's
people hate
review.
Matilda? You think the Times
The
overpraised
Times
it?
review was as over the top as the show itself. He billed it as the best British import since, you know, Bangers and Mash or something. And people saw it, and first of all, it's a very dark show. It's not a feel-good kiddie show. Kinky Boots is a feel-good show. It's homegrown, it's American.
I think
Bring It
that
On
it's
was there.
arguable that Matilda has just as much heart and more sincere heart, more artistically presented heart.
I agree.
But
I agree with that.
sincere heart is not the issue.
Well, Michael,
Kinky
It's,
Boots,
it's which show fakes it best.
I think that if the first night list had still been voting, that 80 that were kicked off.
Us.
yes,
Us.
Reporters with
reporters
taste.
yes.
would I think Matilda
I think
would have
Matilda
squeaked
would've-
through.
Well, yes, I think
it
so.
would have
I agree.
squeaked. I think it would have squeaked through. And I think that Tony voters vote for what they enjoy the most.
Yeah, there was also a sense, though, too. I think a lot of people, a lot of Broadway producers wanted to produce Matilda, and they went after it last year. And the RSC kept a lot of people, the Royal Shakespeare Company, where it originated, they kept a lot of people dangling. And then at the last minute, they went with the Dodgers, who came out of nowhere to get the show. And I think a lot of people felt really thrown aside. They felt screwed by the RSC. And I talked to a lot of those guys, and there are about 30 or 35 of them, which is a chunk in a voting block of 700, who were like, I'm not going to vote for this show. I mean, I made the best possible offer I could have. I was enthusiastic. I was there early for it. They led me on, and then they screwed me.
But let's not have a pity party for Matilda. It's going to run. 4 shows did well enough from this season, 4 big musicals to keep running. That's pretty good. I'm not talking about the quality. I'm just talking about the business. And
Motown, Pippin.
Yeah, but
Matilda.
5 shows. Pippin, Cinderella. It didn't win many awards, but it looked great. I'm sure they sold.
I know, but you know, I would check in with all of these shows a year from now.
Yeah.
I bet the one that is still selling the most tickets is Motown, which got no awards whatsoever. I think both Kinky Boots and Matilda now look solid, but I think they could weaken very, very quickly as we all move on, as the pack moves on to the new season and they become yesterday's news.
It depends on how good the shows are from the new season and how much competition they provide. Because there's only, you know, the Broadway pie never gets bigger. They just start cannibalizing each other.
And I had a diabolical idea, which is there are so many more songs in the Motown catalog than are used in that show because there are so many to begin with. They could spin off Motown 2, 3, 4. It could be the new Fast and the Furious.
God help me.
That is a diabolical idea.
Oh, that really is great. No wonder you're in demand everywhere, Michael.
Bigger than ever.
Very good.
All right,
Well,
guys.
before we close, make sure to see if anybody has a final thought.
Before we die.
Final thought for the season before we go.
The one memorable image
Yes.
from the entire
Thank you.
telecast.
Thank you.
Patrick and
Neil Patrick Harris, French kissing Sandy from Annie.
Sandy
Every
was
right-wing
doing it.
conservative religious theory true that homosexuality leads to bestiality.
Where was the ASPCA when you needed it? Jesse, a final thought on bestiality at the Tony Awards?
Well, I want to go after plants, in particular that big purple dahlia that ate Cicely Tyson. That was my top image from the Tony Awards.
And Michael Musto?
Is Sandy a boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
A boy, actually.
Boy, yeah.
Oh, well, then it's fine. I mean, I thought Neil Patrick was going back in the closet. That's fine.
Back of the kennel. All right, Patrick Pacheco from New York One on Stage, Jesse Green from New York Magazine, Michael Musto fielding offers right and left.
Musto the Musical is my column on Out.com. Among many other offers, I'm fielding left and right.
What is Out.com?
What do you think it is?
Where old hacks go.
No, that's the New York Post.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Hi, AndrewAndrew live for Theater Talk on the red carpet of the 67th annual Tony Awards ceremony.
We're going to be talking to all the stars, finding out what we want to know about what they have to say
About the Tonys. Mayor Bloomberg is winning a Tony tonight. Do you know what show he was in? Because I think we missed it.
Hold on, don't tell me. I know this.
They didn't do Wizard of Oz this year, so it's not that. My arm's too short to box with God.
He was Honey's understudy.
How was he to work with?
I liked him. I mean, he had a lot of opinions, and after a while, you gotta turn that off.
Well, he was in Xanadu for one evening. He was.
I think he did the workshops of Kinky Boots, but then had to drop out for personal reasons, is I think what happened.
Yeah, he was Pippin. Actually, he was the original Pippin. I took over for him as Pippin. He was fantastic. The shirtless scene, Mayor Bloomberg, incredible.
When I was doing Mamma Mia, I did do a show with him. We did a couple of numbers from the show, and he played one of the parts, and I sang with him, and he's not bad.
He's good. Any notes for him?
I think it was that musical. No, what's it called again? I got a third term without asking anyone.
Michael Riedel, in his last column, gave suggestions on how we should make the Tony Awards a better ceremony. Do you have any suggestions on how Michael Riedel might make his column better?
Yeah. Oh, his column better?
No comment.
You know what? I'm not going to get into this war of words because I have a career to have, and I'm not trying to step on Michael Riedel's toes.
I don't even. Who is that? I think I'm English.
When you read his column, do you like it?
I enjoy. I look forward to it.
Well, then why would you put the question in that form and put me on the spot? You sound like you don't like Michael Riedel.
I would like Michael to maybe just see half of the shows he talks about.
Michael Riedel does a great job with his column. He does, because he pisses everybody off. And I mean, isn't that what he's trying to do after all? He does a great job.
Bombshell or hit list? Wait, they're nominated, right?
Oh, God, Bombshell.
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 I like hit list. That sounds more bombshell. Oh, we've seen it. Hit list.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. You've ruined my hair.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's how straight I am.
What? What are you saying?
It's from Smash. Did you watch Smash?
I'm only in the theater to a degree. I'll only take it to a point.
I did an episode of Smash, and I played Kyle's mother. So I have to vote for Hit List because that's his show, and even though he's dead now.
So sorry for your loss.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my baby. But his show lives on.
Great. Thank you again.
Susan, I was in London about 1.5 years ago, and I saw at a small little theater called the Finborough Theater. I think it seats about 12 people. I saw a play that everybody in London was talking about called Cornelius by J.B. Priestley. And it has now come to New York at 59 East 59th Street. A fine, fine play, long forgotten, I think, and it was discovered by very, very fine young director Sam Yates, who has brought it here to New York. Sam, welcome to Theater Talk. Thank you. And it stars an excellent actor, and he should be an excellent actor because it's in his genes, Mr. Alan Cox, who was father Brian Cox, is one of the great stage actors of all time.
Well, there's not much record of the ones that existed before mechanical media, but he's good.
He's
You're
up there.
pretty damn good yourself, so let's move right along.
And Alan plays the title character in Cornelius, which, Sam, tell us about this play, because it is a play that really speaks to our time today, about a small business that's unraveling in the aftermath of the Great Depression. How did you come across this rather obscure play, I have to say?
Well, I'd worked at the Finborough Theatre in 2011 on another sort of rediscovered play called Mixed Marriage by St John Irving. And Neil McPherson, who's the artistic director there, has this sort of list of about 20 or 30 plays that he wants to put on. So Neil invited me to direct something there again, and I sort of read through all of these plays, and this one stuck out to me for various reasons that you've just covered, including its sort of prescience and a great story also about a kind of a small business in great financial difficulty. So it sort of felt to me very fresh and very sort of topical. But also at the heart of it had a great story and some terrific characters.
And Alan, you're playing a character who he runs it's like a middleman distribution kind of a company. And what's going on with the company? And what are you trying to do to keep your head above the water at this point?
Well, they're kind of crippled by international trade and the fact that England was tied into the gold standard in 1925, and they're trying to import aluminium from around the globe, particularly from Canada and France. So in this business of trying to kind of keep hardware manufacturers and the distributors of raw materials sweet, this tiny business who serve as the middlemen, sorting out all the invoices and the dockets and stuff, they find themselves going down. They can't pay the rent. The people are defaulting on payments. The transport companies are overcharging and putting hidden percentages on stuff.
But you're trying to keep up a front for the employees. I mean, you're the charming partner in the company. And one of the things I find interesting about the play is that it's a family. Everyone in the office is a family, and you have this responsibility not to let them down.
Well, he's kind of an Edwardian gentleman. He's slightly not of the contemporary time, but it's that old value of decency and good manners and appropriate and inappropriate behavior. And he's very positive and doesn't allow negativity in front of the youngsters, because that would not be useful.
And also, Sam, there's a sense too of something that has unraveled in all of the Western world today, that these people thought they probably would have jobs for life in this kind of company. You brought somebody in and you would spend your time there and you would get the gold watch after 65 years and go on. And now they're all learning that they're going to be tossed onto the scrap heap.
Absolutely. And what was happening at the time in London was that there was the outcry about the student fees for university, because it used to be, it seemed, that you'd go to university and you'd walk out into a job, and suddenly there were thousands and thousands of people coming out of university with nothing to go to. Similarly, I'd worked a bit in my kind of 16 to 20-year-old at the BBC, and they had what they called lifers, who'd been there, would be there for 40 years. And suddenly they introduced these one-year contracts, so it was all changing, and it's kind of the last 10 years really, I think.
Listen, I'm in the newspaper racket.
Well, there we are.
But also the BBC TV Centre, which was like a fact of my growing. I mean, I started acting when I was 5 years old, and I used to do things in the BBC Centre, which was sort of iconic. For
that circular building.
That's right, and it's gone because of new media again. And funnily enough, there's a thing aspected in the play, which is the 19-year-old office boy who is kind of ill-mannered, but his ambition is to work in wireless.
Yes, that's wonderful.
That's right. The idea that the wireless was a thing that was making communication so much faster.
And the rest of you are skeptical.
Absolutely.
No, it's true. I mean, on every level of this play, I happen to think that Priestley is an underappreciated writer, at least in this country. But in this play, he really is getting at things that are going on today. That the way you used to do business is ending. Jobs for life are over with, and this kid who is into the wireless.
Well, interesting enough, he was a great Yankophile. He loved America, and he came out to Arizona and got them to build a little shack so that he could write these quintessentially kind of London novels. It was very kind of strange.
Priestley? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
He went to Arizona?
There's a book called Midnight on the Desert about 1935 when Cornelius was first produced in London. He came over to Broadway. One of his plays had been on without him being there, and then he came here to oversee the production of Eden's End, which didn't do very well here. But he loved it. He loved the kind of the
the
And
dynamic.
The vitality of America.
Absolutely. And also the contrast between the kind of the living circuit board of New York and the kind of the epic vistas of the Midwest. And he really, he has a, even though he's very pragmatic and he's from the north of England, he has a slightly kind of mystical, philosophical dimension to him as well.
Now, Sam, you look like you're 12 years old. Forgive me for saying. 14. And you had extraordinary success with this play in London, because when I was over there, everybody was telling me, I mean, Charlie Spencer at the Telegraph and Matt Wolfe, all the major critics said, you've got to go out to the Finborough Theatre to see this play. Has this become a kind of a calling card for you, or have you been launched into the world of Sam Mendes and Michael Grandages? And am I looking at the future head of the National Theatre here?
I hope so.
You'll work.
Yes, all those things are true, Michael. All those things are absolutely true. Well, you know, it's...
Where did you come from?
Well, I'm also from the north, like Priestley. Didn't have a particularly theatre-going family. Got into it at university and actually acted for a while. And funnily enough, understudied in the History Boys at the National. So while the original, we were the second cast, while the original cast were over here making a huge storm, causing a huge storm, we were at the National in London, sort of keeping the production going. So I started there and then sort of closed the acting door, as it were, and started to assist. I always knew I wanted to sort of serve, to use a very Priestley word, an apprenticeship really in the business, rather than doing a sort of master's course or coming at it.
When you say you closed the acting door, why at such a young age would you decide not to pursue acting?
Well, I think it was an awareness that I probably didn't feel like I had the legs to do it as a career, and secondly, I just started to become far more interested in the bigger picture. So rather than just my particular role in a production, I was starting to think far more widely.
Let me ask you, you worked with Nick Heitner, a wonderful director, right, on History Boys.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and as you're a young actor, what are you seeing? Give us a sense of what Nick is doing that you find quite interesting that you're going to be using and stealing.
I suppose what he first introduced me to was the idea of a sort of subtext of a moment. The idea that you will say the line, but you will mean something completely different. It's like the great Judi Dench analogy of the millefeuille, that the line is the icing sugar on the top, but actually you're playing the 85th layer of pastry or whatever. So it's a level of detail and a level of subtext that I think started, and also his energy and his Rolls-Royce brain was very, very exciting.
And his Rolls-Royce, since he directed Miss Saigon, so he's doing very well. Now, Alan, I have to ask you, your father's a great actor. Any hesitation on your part when you were growing up to go into the profession, or it was just the natural thing for you to do? And did your father encourage it?
At 5.
At 5.
At 5.
At the age of 5. Yes. I mean, again, as my dad's a Scotsman, and, he came down to London to get his training, and then he was, again, wrapped in the sort of twilight of the repertory movement that kind of built his technique, as it were. And also, he's always had a sense that, and yet he grew up watching the movies, so he never particularly wanted to serve the English theatre. He loved the movies, and he had this great aptitude for big texts. So when he started working more and more over here, was just after I was leaving drama school, and my apprenticeship was at the Royal Shakespeare Company. So. And then after the RSC, I went to the National Theatre, and then you kind of go, where next? So with my dad coming and working over here, there was always a sense of there's more territory than just serving the English theatre, but one also has to return back to that source that has kind of nourished you in the first place.
What's the best advice your father's given you about making a career in this business?
Don't let the bastards grind you down.
That should stand you in good stead for a long time.
Did you ever feel overshadowed by him, though?
No, he was tall when I was little. No, because, as my friend Toby Stevens said,
Maggie Smith's
son, and Robert Stevens' son as well. He said, he said, I'd be naive if I didn't think that, having parents within the industry didn't open a few doors, but once you get through those doors, you're kind of what you stand up in, and you're on your own.
Yeah.
So I've never felt intimidated by his
kind of reputation, I don't think. I've always...
It enhances your pedigree.
Well, that's not up to me to say, but
Yeah.
you know, I grew up in the environment, so I'm familiar with the environment. I'm not surprised by it. You know, we used to, again, my dad as a Scotsman, we used to have these New Year's Eve parties, and you know, his peers, and you know, I remember, you know, Albert Finney hoovering up after, because he was jet lagged and he'd come later than everybody else, and so he helped put all the rubbish away and did a bit of hoovering. I know it sounds like it's just a fact.
It's true. And you know you're getting paid the big bucks at 59, big bucks at 59 East 50. You made a fortune off Cornelius.
But that's true. I mean, you mentioned, we just off air we were talking about, you know, when he came over to New York to do St. Nicholas.
Yeah, wonderful play. We had him on the show for that, yeah.
And before that, he came and he did it at the Bush.
Yeah.
Which again, like the Fimbra, was you know, it's
a
tiny little theatre then. But again, he had that sense of you go where the, you know, you go where the writing is. You go where the writing is, and hopefully you can self-subsidize.
The play is called Cornelius, a fine, neglected play by J.B. Priestley. I urge you to see it at 59 East 59th Street, directed by Sam Yates and starring Alan Cox.
Until June 30th.
Thank you very much for being our guest tonight on Theatre Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theatre Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theatre Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theatre Talk. Thank you and good night.